jump in this thing and see what it'll do.
Ready to rock this, bro?
Oh, hell yeah. Alright, we just finished all the brake lines for this thing. So the front comes up, over, loop-de-loop-de-loop, up, in, goes to the brake bias, back out, down to the front brakes where it Y's or T's, boom, boom, done. And of course the rears out, loop-de-loop, down, back. What we got next? Go get parts for the brakes. Alright, out. Eric?
It's a piece of shit.
And that's more junk. And Walter's got the gooder engine. 360 Magnum. Gotta rip the intake off, all the wiring, the drive accessory. That just got dropped off to us today by a fellow Instagrammer. Brought it to us for the Dirt Track Duster. And making a cool old school custom gauge panel, and we're getting the battery mounted. We got our bar for the fuel line. I got my brake bias mounted, that's for the front brakes. We finished all the brake lines, master cylinder, so chugging along. Learn something new every day. I learned that 360 Magnum water pumps are not the same bolt pattern as in LA. So now we're gonna have to try and use the serpentine pulley setup that came off of this engine, but we don't have a power steering pump. So we'll try and find a power steering pump later. The main thing is just getting this thing running and driving. They can drive it without a power steering pump, but they can't drive it without an engine. So we got a dented pulley here. I don't know if you can see that or not, but it's round, 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 flat. We're gonna try and just hammer this out, see if we can't get it somewhat decent. And then we're gonna go ahead and bolt the serpentine pulley setup back on it and run it, because that's what we got to work with. And that fan blade beats the shit too, huh? Yeah. Electric fan it is. Issues. Alright, we'll hammer that thing. That looks kind of rounder, don't it? Yeah. Pardon? Glue that in. To apologize. I had done a lot of work to this thing and we didn't film any of it because we just needed to slam it out and get it done. Too many problems were coming our way, too many things we had to do versus sitting there holding a camera and talking about it and showing it. We just need to get the shit done. Amongst those things is, I can't even remember if I even showed you the brakes that we got done. So new master cylinders in, I made new brake lines. We got it all teed off down there. And that goes to a front brake bias, because you want to limit your front brakes on dirt, not your rear brakes. Because if you hit the brakes and your front tires lock up, you're just going straight. So that's to limit the front brakes. The switch panel that I had in this car turned out every single switch on that panel was dead. The ignition switch was dead. The fuel pump switch was dead, and the push button start switch was just constantly on. So got new switches for it. Of course, these were all just freebies that were given to me, so you know, I got a free panel out of it anyway and some warning lights. But the gauges were all given to me and everything, so can't complain too much. But I do have new switches and a new push button to replace these guys. That'll be done. We got a master switch that was given to me. So that is fancy, dead face, smiley face, on off. We got a fan switch. And if you'll notice, most dirt track cars do not have a fan switch and do not have a fuel pump switch. The reason we had to put a fan switch on it is because we now have a 360 Magnum and the fan clutch that was on it was toast. Actually, oh, there it is, yeah. It is bent all to hell. So then I needed a radiator. I bought a radiator from a friend of mine, and the radiator already had electric fans on it. So, you know, the manual fan was toast, and the new radiator came with electric fans. Kind of no-brainer. And it came with the controller and a massive 40 amp fuse block to run the fan. So went ahead and hooked up, got a switch for the fans. Now we have an electric fuel pump on this car. Most dirt track cars do not have electric fuel pumps. It's actually outlawed. The reason we had to put an electric fuel pump on the car is because the original 318 that was in this car was toast. Gone, donezo, locked up, garbage. So then I bought a 318 to replace it from a local Mopar parts flipper. Pulled the intake manifold off of it, looked down the intake runners with a flashlight. One of the intake runners completely shot. The valve was rotted to the guide. Pulled the cylinder head off, thinking we could just replace the cylinder head, and then two cylinders completely toast, full of rust. So that engine, engine number one was junk. Engine number two was junk. We could not find a replacement 318. Of the bazillions of 318s they made, we couldn't get one locally in a short time. So put a want ad out there, and a local guy that I know, Matt, had this 360 Magnum, which is more betters, bigger cubic inch, more betters, roller cam, more betters, better cylinder heads, more betters. Overall, more betters. We're gonna put the points distributor on it. Now with the Magnum, we have a different intake manifold. I had already gotten a brand new a Hawaiian intake manifold for a 318, but the Magnums take a different bolt pattern, so had to get a different intake. And since it's a Magnum, of course, the 318 oil pan wouldn't fit because the rear journal is larger. I was gonna cut up these two oil pans and make one oil pan, but the Roadkill guys sent me an oil pan. They also sent me the new intake manifold, and because it's a 360 Magnum, the flywheel I had somewhere around here, right over there, would not work. That's a zero balance flywheel. So we had to order a McLeod flywheel, and then we had to order the counterbalance set to go for the 360 Magnum. What else did we have to change on this thing? Oh, I'm gonna have to run the serpentine setup because the water pump that I have does not work on with this, and to get a V, I could have gotten a V drive water pump, but we're just trying to limit the amount of stuff we got to buy for this thing. And we already had an alternator, and the alternator on the 318 was toast, so just trying to use as much as we've got, and we're gonna end up leaving the serpentine setup on it. Hopefully I can find a powered steering pump serpentine, or maybe just replace the maybe I can put a serpentine pulley on this guy here. Oh, speaking of this guy here, we have all new brakes on this thing, front and rear. So we've got new calipers, new pads, the bearings have been repacked, the rotors were cleaned up. I took the rotors to a brake shop to have them turned, and I'm watching the rotor on the machine do this. Well, he's telling me, oh, I can't turn your rotors, they're messed up. I'm like, no, if it was the rotor that was messed up, it would be just the rotor going like this. Your whole armature of the machine is going like this. Long story short, the guy was an idiot. I just took him out of there and just sanded him myself. So we got our wiring, we got our firewall bulkhead right here, so I can run the battery through the firewall. Here's all the wiring I need for the engine. Radiator, let's see. I made the tube here. This is going to be for the fuel line. Fuel line runs through that, and since the fuel line runs through that steel tubing, I can just attach my electrical to that. Let's see. Oh, I added seat belts to this guy. I had to add that dash bar along with making the gauge panel, because the original dash bar that was here was completely rotted. The bar actually rotted and fell off the cage. So ground it all down, welded what I could to it, and then I added another bar behind the back seat so that way I can hook up my seat belts. We've got our seat belts down there. Went through the rear brakes, went ahead, so put new pads on that, put it all back together. I had to put a wheel adapter on this to convert it from 4-inch A body bolt pattern to the 4.5-inch B body bolt pattern, so that way we could run these slick slotted dish mags with the Hoosier dirt track tires off of my modified. These tires have already got wins on them, so hopefully Dulcich can continue that legacy on. All right, back to the trunk. Brand new fuel cell bolted to the trunk. Whoop-de-doo. This is a Carter fuel pump, and yeah, that's it. We got our battery box, brand new battery. Now I just need to get to putting this engine together, put my new flywheel on it, put the pilot bearing in it because now it's manual. I got some used headers for it, A-body headers right there. We're gonna put those on this guy. I got some A-body header gaskets. I mean, not A-body header gaskets. I got brand new Rimflex header gaskets for it. I need to tap this guy because whatever was there, it ain't there no more. So I need to tap that and just plug it. And I need to put new points and condenser inside this cap. All right, I got plenty of stuff to do today. Just need to get on it. it racing. 360 Magnum converted to carbureted, V-body oil pan, left the serpentine pulley setup on it, and dinosaur points. This was a fuel injected electronic ignition, now it's points carbureted. But to complete the package, I need to put a flywheel on it. So we have a special McLeod flywheel here with a weight kit, so like that way I had to bolt this weight to it. That way it'll work with the external balancing of the 360. Just finished welding up the motor mount, attach this sucker, and then I can put the bell housing on it. Actually, I'm waiting. We need to put the pilot bearing in it. That's in the freezer right now, so I can pound that in. So a pilot bearing, flywheel, clutch, bell housing, transmission, bolt it to the K-frame, then we can lift the car up and drop it down. All right, doing it. Ready, Dulcich. All right, this sucker is done. Actually, I lied, it's not done. One last thing I have to do was I needed a little bit more tire clearance, because this thing used to have some 6-inch factory steel wheels on it. Now we got some slotted dish mags to make it look more manly and beefy and awesomer. But the problem with that is wheel well openings. And the biggest problem is with the rears, because this still has the dinky 7 1/4 axle in it, which is only a 4-inch bolt pattern from stud to stud. So these wheels are 4.5-inch bolt pattern. So I had to run a 1-inch spacer that's also an adapter, and with that we had a problem here. This one I'd already modified. I'll go over to the other side and show you. Got a little flair to it for styling. This was the problem right here. See, the tire sticks out from the body now, and we got not even 2 inches, well, not even 2 fingers from the top of the tire to the bottom of the wheel well lip. That's no bueno. So what I'm gonna have to do, just like I did the other side, torch this opening bigger, cut out some of the inner, hammer the inner, and then flare the outer. The fronts was easier. All I did was just take the plasma cutter and just make a bigger opening. Boom, done. But not too shabby. It'll work good. All right, well, let me go ahead and finish this thing real quick. So then I can go for, I don't even know what they're gonna call this thing. When I got it, I called it the Dirty D because it's a dirt track duster, so the Dirty D. But I don't know what they're gonna call it. So I'll leave that open to them. I just love this thing now. It's so bitchin' looking. It just looks like a Mad Max dirt track car. It just screams, get the f out my way. All right, I'm gonna torch that open real quick. Call this car race ready. That was a long list of shit to do on this car and a lot of work. Man, there was a lot of things that had to be done to this car. See, where do I even start? Okay, well, to start, we had to tear it down. So we had to rip the old drivetrain out of this car, which was a locked up 318. I did record some of that. So that engine came out, and we were going to use the accessories and parts off that engine to put onto a donor 318 that I had got for this car from a local Mopar parts guy. Yeah, I can't believe I'm a Mopar guy and I have a hard time saying that. Anyways, so the donor engine we got turned out to be junk. Pulled the intake off, which, you know, the guys at Roadkill had sent me some parts for this thing. That way it all didn't have to come out of my pocket. And sent me an intake manifold, gaskets, and some other stuff, and a new clutch and everything for the new engine. Well, when the new engine turned out to be junk, we never thought that it would be so hard to find another 318. I put out a want ad, Freiberger put out a want ad on Instagram, Facebook, could not find an engine that was close to me that was worth buying. You know, there was guys that had race engines and engines all around the country, but nothing local. So finally I settled on a guy that had messaged me, said he had a 360 Magnum, which 360 Magnum is a way better engine than an LA 318. So that is what we ended up settling on to put into this car. All right, about an hour later we got all the wing nuts out, actually the wing bolts, and we got a 360 Magnum with aftermarket dual plane high-rise intake, 650 L-Rock carburetor with double stacked air cleaners to make it a total 600 horsepower. Just kidding. But I did have to put an aftermarket oil pan on it because the 360s have a different oil pan. The 360 has a different intake manifold, and we use the same carburetor that Freiberger sent me. And this radiator I had got from the local Mopar parts flipper. But the fan controller was burned out, so I had to find a high amperage relay, just stuck that right there, but still use the fuse. New master cylinder, Put some headers on this turd. We had to bash the headers a little bit to make it fit. So we got our voltage regulator. This is still a points distributor. Got all the wires. The alternator works. Got 14.5 charging system. This is actually the front accessory drive from the pickup. So this is from a 97 Dodge Ram. And Dulcich had to have power steering. And so, which I agree. If you're gonna go dirt track racing, you gotta have power steering. It gives you more control of the car. So last minute on Saturday, 110 degrees, went to the wrecking yard and found him a power steering pump from a 97 Dodge Ram. So bought the pump, got a belt for it. I went and had to make a high pressure 6 hose for it. So that's all done. And we just torched ourselves a pretty little hole. And everything else under here is pretty much all. We had to cut some metal out of the way because they had welded the K-frame to the body by some angle iron. So that's all fixed. And the suspension is still the same clapped out suspension that it was before, nothing special. Had to cut this tube out here from there to there because it was hitting the alternator. I should have added another bar, but screw it, didn't. Let's see, got new header bolts for it, got Remflex header gaskets. We got our Slinky Dink radiator hose all the way around over here because this is the wrong radiator for this engine. Ugh. Now I'm gonna have to bolt that sucker back down. Anyways, actually here we go. This is everything we had to do. Yep, clean all the bowls, torsion bars, gauges, gas tank, blah 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 blah. Yeah, we had to put new rear wheel well cylinders in it. Oh, so yeah, once I got the car pretty much done, I went to stick the drive shaft in it, and it was way too short. I mean, it was like 2.5 inches too short. The drive shaft only had about that much of the shaft into the transmission, and it was flopping around. So, luckily, my buddy Rick that works at Dan's Driveline, I hit him up, hey, how screwed am I to get a drive shaft made like now? He's like, I'll stay after hours and make you one to be ready in the morning. I'm like, sweet. So he made me a drive shaft for this car. That was last minute. I gotta make sure I still have all the receipts for this thing because I got a bunch of money in this turret. I'm gonna get reimbursed. Of course, I wouldn't mind keeping it now. It's actually pretty cool. One thing I do need to put on this car though is a shift ball. Because I don't know what they're going to be doing with this thing, but if you're going to have to be shifting it, you're not going to want to be grabbing those threaded into that shifter handle. So I need to find a ball I can either weld, screw, whatever. Alright, well, I guess the last thing to do to this thing is go for a test drive. So, bolt the hood back down, fire this turd up. Let's see. Shit.